I've continued to bead in the sequence I would write the word with a pen or pencil, and I've now come to another challenge. It is the letter E, so I'm going to put on another group of 3 beads, hold them in place, pass the needle through the fabric. I'm now coming back through the fabric between bead 1 and 2, and without going through the fabric, I'm going to pass the needle through bead 2 and out of bead 3. To cross this intersection, I'm not going to put on beads to go over this line of beads. Instead, I'm going to pass the needle and thread to the wrong side of the fabric at the end of bead number 3, and I'm going to come up in the place that I want to continue the letter E. Pick up 3 more beads. Let them fall down to the fabric, touching each other in the fabric. Hold them in place with my non-beading hand so I know where to put the needle through the fabric. And then I'll go on with another group of 3. We'll be able to smooth out these lines in the last step of creating a beaded word. I now need to get from this point on the A to this point on the A so I can continue writing the letter A with beads. To do that, I'm going to take what I call an anchor stitch in the fabric. I'm going to come back up through the fabric at approximately the same point, pull the needle through to the right side, and without putting on any beads, I'm going to run my needle and thread down to the point where I want to continue adding more beads. I'm not going through the fabric here, but just passing in a backward direction through the beads. Until I get to the point where I want to continue the letter A with new beads. I'm now going to continue by putting 3 beads on the needle and thread, letting them fall down to the fabric, touching each other in the fabric, hold them in place with my non-beading thumb so I know where to pass the needle and thread through the fabric. And then I'm going to come up between bead 1 and 2 to the right side of the fabric. And just like always, pass the needle through bead 2 and out of bead 3, and I can continue with the curve of the letter A. I've now come to the point of the letter A, and I've already determined that there is only enough space for 2 beads instead of 3. So I'm going to continue with the back stitch by passing the needle and the thread through the fabric at the end of bead number 2. I'm going to come up through the fabric between bead 1 and 2 and pass the needle out of bead 2. I need to switch directions with my needle and beads so that I can go this way up to the letter T, and to do that I'm going to take an anchoring stitch in the fabric, and then I'm going to switch directions, going the opposite direction with the needle and thread I have been going, by passing the needle and thread down through all the beads in the letter A that I need to pass through to get to the point where I can then finish the A and go up to the letter T. So I'm ready now to put on 3 more beads. I'll lay them on the fabric, holding them in place with my non-beading thumb, and I will continue writing with beads. I've now come to the point of my T, and I need to get my needle and thread down to here so I can continue writing with beads. So this is like the letter A. I've put on my last 3 beads. I'm going to take an anchor stitch into the fabric, come back through the fabric to the right side at nearly the same point, and pass my needle and thread through the beads in the letter T until I can come to the point down here where I'm going to continue. That's not quite it. I have to go through probably 2 more beads. Let's see. Oh, that's 3 beads. Let's see. That looks about right for me to continue with the letter T. In case you're wondering why, when I put on bead on my beaded line and got up to this point, I didn't just end the line of beads with the knot and then bring the needle and thread back to this point to continue beading, is because then there will be a break in the beads here. By going up and beading this part of the T, taking a anchoring stitch and passing the needle and thread all the way back here to begin beading again, you have a continuous line of beads. I really like using this font. It's called French Script, except I'm going to take some artistic license now. I would like to extend the cross line of the T down to this area. If you notice on the font, it just stops there. So I've put 3 beads on my needle and thread. I'm going to somewhat aim it for the other side of the part that crosses the T. I've taken a measure and held the beads in place with my non-beading thumb. Like always, passing the needle and thread through the fabric between bead 1 and 2, out of bead 2 and out of bead 3. I've got room for maybe 1 more bead here. That should do it. Put it in place. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread and jump over to where the cross line is on my fabric, which should be right about here. And I'm going to continue beading the T. Ta-da! The word create is completely beaded. I've been using ceramide beading thread in a color that closely matches the color of the value of the beads I've been using. You match the color of your beading thread to the beads, not the fabric. For the next step, we're going to pass the needle and thread through all the beads in the complete word to smooth out the lines. And if I was using size 11 seed beads, which is the most common size of seed beads, I would be doing this with the ceramide beading thread. But because today we have size 8 beads, which are much larger, I've taken pearl rayon, or you could find a thicker thread and put it on a large needle that fits through the holes of the beads. And what you will be doing is running the needle and the thread, and I'm using double thread, through all the beads in the word create. The more thread we can get into the holes of the beads that are used in writing a word in beads, the smoother we can get the lines. So that's why I've chosen now a heavier thread, because the holes are bigger in these larger beads. And what you will be doing is just what I'm doing. It's going back through all the beads in the word without going through fabric. You just pass the needle and thread back through all the beads until you get to the end of your word. I'm hoping you can already see the change happening, how much smoother the lines are becoming.